No. So you come in and because you're going to get this shoulder rotation. This is a key part for being an excellent swimmer, is being able to get that shoulder rotation here. Because you want to be able to rotate. In fact, you want to be able to rotate your body almost between 45 and 90 degrees. So it's quite a bit of rotation. No, all the time.
We're ready to go, Ruben.
Ruben, okay. Pedro?
We're already live, actually.
We're live?
Yeah.
All right, then.
I had to press the button and come over.
Okay,
here.
good. You're on. Go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. And especially for you, you're enjoying that meal. Sorry to point it out. Sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. Now I'm always putting my foot in my mouth. All right. Good evening. Welcome once again. This is our last session of this series of health topics. When did we begin? April? March?
March.
Wow. April, May, June, July. 5 months, or
Yeah.
we've covered 5 months.
Yes.
So
Yes.
every other week for the last 5 months, and we had a little break there in June, but you've been a faithful group. Either I know not everybody comes to every session, but we've had a consistent group, and we're grateful and glad that you're able to take advantage of these sessions. We were happy to open our doors to you into our space here, and know that our congregation, our church is, Ruben said this many times about how the Seventh-day Adventist Church believes very much so in health. We don't believe just in Bible study and praying. That is very important, but also we believe that we need to take care of the temple that God gave us, and that we are stewards of this body. We don't always do it perfectly, or not even as close to perfect as we know, because many times when we are the stewards of good information, we don't always make good use of that information. But we need to be reminded, and we're glad that Ruben has come to remind us, and maybe for you it's something new. So we're glad to be able to open our doors and make that available to you. And these doors will always remain open to you. Maybe not on Wednesday evenings that we may not have something going on, but we believe in rest. And that's what Sabbath is for us. Every Saturday, we take 24 hours off from work. We pause, we stop. Most people stop working unless you're a doctor or law enforcement or something like that. We believe in the blessing of rest, which is one of the good things of health. And God put it in our weekly rhythm that says every seventh day you should stop and rest. And so we do that, and we worship. We have spiritual disciplines, and we fellowship with one another. Sometimes we eat in this very room. Most of the time it's vegetarian. And so you are more than welcome to join us here on what we call Sabbath worship, Sabbath mornings. So starting at 10 o'clock, I do a Bible study here, and then at 11 o'clock, we all get together in the big sanctuary together. So once again, you're all welcome to continue after this journey. I will pray, and then we'll let Ruben continue. Heavenly Father, we thank you, God, for the many lessons that we've learned and heard and been reminded of throughout the last 5 months or so. And we thank you for sending Ruben to us and being a blessing to us, and such an inspiring and encouraging words of affirmation, and also little nudges and big nudges of striving for excellence in all things that we do. So bless them again once tonight, and all of us who are here. And for those watching online, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pedro. All right. Welcome. Welcome. I'm so excited. This is one of my favorite talks, and I'll tell you why. What most people do not know about me is my athletic background. I was a collegiate swimmer, qualified for nationals, NAIA, California Lutheran University. I played semi-pro basketball 2 years in Los Angeles. LA City College was the gym that we played basketball. I got offered to play professional basketball in Mexico. I should have gone. However, I didn't, because I was passionately committed to going to medical school. So that's what I did instead. But then also when I was in college, I was a I was a sports medicine trainer. So I did kinesiology, I did exercise physiology, and Dr. John Tomek, the orthopedic surgeon who was the physician-in-chief for the orthopedic department at the Los Robles Regional Medical Center, was my professor in sports medicine training, to become a sports medicine trainer. And so the next year, I was the sports medicine trainer for the entire soccer club, but I also got to do an internship with the Dallas Cowboys that summer. I never taped so many smelly feet in my whole life. So it wasn't so glorious, okay? But I got to work with professional athletes, and it was awesome to be able to do that. So I had a great experience with that. And then after I went to medical school and did my master's in public health, and I was trying to figure out what was next after I finished a hospital administration, I said, you know what? I don't want to work for anybody else right now. I'm going to work for myself. So I said, I'm not going to say much about myself and my background. I'm just going to sneak into the gym here and apply to become a personal trainer. So I became a personal trainer, and then I became a clinical exercise specialist, and I became a nutrition consultant, and I became a yoga teacher, and I taught water aerobics, and I had so much fun. It was great. So I did that for about 4 years before I went into consulting. So I've had a lot of enjoyment working with a lot of people in sports, and I want you to also know that as of last month, I celebrate now 50 years of coaching, 50 years of coaching athletes. So I started after my senior year of high school, I started coaching basketball with a whole bunch of buddies of mine. I went to the gym and asked if I could join the men's league for the summer league. And they said, well, Ruben, you're too young. You're still 17. We can't have you in here. However, we need one more team. If you get a bunch of your friends together, I'll let you in. So here I went and got my friends. And we were 16, 17, and 18 years of age. And Lorenzo Romar, anybody know that name? He played for the Milwaukee Bucks and the Golden State Warriors. He ended up playing there. He played at Oregon. Don Carfino played at USC. Bob Sims played at Harvard. And a whole bunch of others, and it was awesome. We ended up winning the league. It was awesome. It was amazing. We were young, but we knew how to play basketball really well together. It was awesome. So we were really great, and we were in great shape back then. So it was wonderful. So I've had this history. I've coached swimmers for many, many, many years, high-level swimmers. I've had over 40 of my swimmers go off to college and swim, most of them on scholarship. I've had 3 go to the Olympic trials for the United States of America, and it's been awesome. And one of my swimmers that went to the Olympic trials is still swimming. So he'll be at Masters Nationals next week. So I'm very excited about him. So John Pylan will be swimming the 50 breaststroke, the 100 breaststroke, and the 50 fly. So I'm really excited. He took 3 medals last year. So I have a background in working with athletes. I'm still an athlete. I still play full court basketball. I play today. And I still dance salsa. I still love to swim. I still love to play tennis. Still ride my bike. I do all of that stuff. However, I have to tell you, COVID knocked me for a loop because my gym closed down during COVID. So basketball went by the wayside. In fact, the swimming pool was even closed down for a while, so I didn't have much of anything to do. So that was very difficult. And then I started getting back into it, but I had some injuries. And I'm just recovering now from 2 injuries. I strained my right Achilles because I tore the left one back in 1990, and I started straining the right one. I said, I'm not going to do that again. So I took 4 months off just to heal my Achilles. And then I went back to playing basketball, and I played a little too hard. And I strained my lateral meniscus of my right knee again. And I have been so I'm going to talk about injury prevention as well. So that's one of the things that I've been doing. So today was the second time I played basketball in 4 months. And it felt really good. In fact, going up the stairs, I had absolutely no twinge in my knee. So that's a victory. It's very good. But I've learned how to take care of my, take care of my injuries. And that's real important. So I'm going to cover a lot of information today about athletic performance because more and more people are taking on being active as they get older. I read these stories. This one woman, I think she's like 87 years old, and she deadlifted 165 pounds, 160 pounds. She's a nun, and so it's amazing. Like amazing, right? I'm reading these stories of people doing extraordinary things. And she's vegan, by the way. She eats only plants. So I'm reading all kinds of amazing stories about senior athletes getting more and more productive and more athletic as they get older. It's so exciting. So I'm planning to play basketball when I'm 75. That's my commitment. I want to get to 75. And I'm going to swim till the day I die. I'm very clear about that. I'm going to dance till the day I die. I'm very clear about that too. So all kinds of things are really possible for us as we get older. Today, I want to share with you some very valuable information that will help you on your journey to be a senior athlete. I mean, to be athletic and to be able to have vitality in your life. Even if you're not an athlete per se in a master's program, you can still have optimal vitality. Who's ready for that? Who's ready for that? All right, very good. All right, awesome. Awesome. So very quickly, I'm going to go through my background for so please check in. All right, so very good. There's a clipboard and by your first name, alphabetical. So my background, for those of you who don't know, there's a couple of you who are new. I did my undergraduate studies at California Lutheran University in Thousand Oaks. Then I went off to medical school after a couple of years of working in the hospital. Then I was at UC Davis for 3 years. And I did research into the connection between lifestyle and longevity. And then my research led me to the UCLA School of Public Health. Got my master's in public health, and I was so excited. And I realized that I was passionate about promoting health and preventing disease, and I was no longer interested in treating disease. So as a result, I made a bold decision not to go back to medical school and finish that. I chose instead to pursue studying lifestyle medicine on my own, but there was nothing called lifestyle medicine back then. And then I did that. I went into hospital administration and healthcare administration for well over a dozen years. And then I went into consulting back in 2001. And in 2016, I went to a conference and I discovered that there is now a new specialty of the American Medical Association called the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. It's so exciting because it's an evidence-based approach to prevent, reverse, and treat chronic disease. It's an evidence-based lifestyle therapeutic intervention, including a whole food, plant-predominant eating pattern, regular physical activity, very important, restorative sleep, stress management, avoidance of risky substances, and positive social connection, and more. As a primary modality, and what we say in lifestyle medicine, let's use this approach first. Let's do this approach first rather than just giving medications. Let's start with this. Teach people how to live a thriving, healthy, happy life. And this is delivered by clinicians trained and certified in this specialty to prevent, treat, and often reverse chronic disease. So exciting. This was exactly what I was looking for. Exactly. So these are the 8 areas that I cover specifically, and there's more, but I cover all of these in great depth with all of my clients. And I cover those 6 areas plus hydration and plus happiness, but all of it's important. It's a comprehensive approach. This is a holistic, W-H-O-L, holistic. So it's the whole body. And I was so excited when I went to my first conference in 2017 in Tucson, Arizona. And then they announced board certification for the first time for physicians, MDs and DOs, but also for professionals, which were PhDs and those with a master's in a health-related field. Yes. So I jumped right in, studied for a year, and then in October 2018, I became one of the first board-certified lifestyle medicine professionals in the world. And my certificate number is 00081. And today there are over 6,500 board-certified clinicians in lifestyle medicine. I'm also a member of the Institute of Coaching out of Harvard. Many of us are. I actually wrote the first comprehensive drill book in the sport of swimming back in 1998, Swimming Drills for Every Stroke. It's been updated twice. It's now the best-selling swimming drill book in the entire world and translated to 5 other languages. I'm very proud of that. And I've also written this book in health called Evolving Health, endorsed by Dr. Neil Barnard. And this is the mock-up cover for my soon-to-be-released book on health, How to Fully Live. I'm so excited. And make sure you're checked in and that I've got your email address. If you're new here, make sure you fill out a yellow card so I can give you the follow-up email. And that way I'm going to be able to share with you the news when we're going to have book signings, so that you can get one of my books. It'll be very exciting, very, very exciting. I get to live into this quote that Thomas Edison said well over 100 years ago, that the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will instruct his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. And that's what we get to do in lifestyle medicine. We are the doctors of the future now. It's so exciting. And also let you know that I have no conflicts of interest whatsoever. I have no products to sell you, just so you know, okay? So I'm not here to get something from you. I'm here to give. My passion is about eliminating chronic disease from the face of the planet and empowering every single person to live a thriving, healthy, happy life. And to me, it's important that I do these free seminars for you, because I feel as adults, we all have a responsibility to leave this world in better condition than how we found it. How many of you agree with me on that? Yeah, absolutely. And that's important for our legacy, whether we have children or not, but it's important for our legacy for the rest of the ones to come behind us. So it's real important. So that's what I do, why I do this. This is my way of giving back. So here's what we're going to cover today. A lot. So I'm going to give you hacks today, real good hacks. We're going to talk about the context for performance and health in a different way today. But I'm going to cover hydration, nutrition, cardiovascular exercise, strength, yoga as major components for being able to be effective in your athletic performance. These things need to be fundamentals. And then we'll talk about some examples and how you can make the rest of your life the best of your life. How many of you want that? All right, we're going to do that. Excellent. So let's talk about the context for health. And it begins with this quote from my dear professor, Dr. Michael Kalitsky, who in Cal Lutheran, it was a comparative anatomy and physiology class. And he said, remember that all of life is in one of two states at any given moment. Either it is surviving or it is thriving, and that's all there is. And he said it like that, which kind of shocked me. And what I came to discover over time, it has everything to do with what we call the central nervous system, which the central nervous system is what we call the electrical system of the body, or the autonomic nervous system. And its major components are the limbic system of the brain, the core of your brain, not the outer cortex, but the core of your brain. And that features the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, the amygdala, pituitary, all of those core organs of the brain, and the entire spinal cord. That's your electrical system. And it's the first system in the body to become operational and functional in the embryo. And it's a two-wire system. So the negative current is what we refer to as the sympathetic branch of the central nervous system. The positive current is what we refer to as the parasympathetic branch of the central nervous system. So it's an electrical system. And just like any electrical system, it's got these two wires. And we can go back and forth between positive and negative, but we don't run both at the same time. that would cause a short. So we operate either one or the other at any given moment. So when we're in the sympathetic state, for whatever reason, physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, then we're going to experience stress. And we'll be in the state of survival. Now, we're going to be operating neurologically in our brain at a very primal level, very primal. Not a whole lot of conscious thinking going on. Fight, flight, freeze, and fold is what we recognize as symptoms that we can express. But even as subtle as a perceived threat is enough to induce fear and being in the sympathetic state. What we now show in the research is very clear that the common thread of all chronic disease is being in the state of dis-ease far too much, far too often, far too long. So whether it's heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoporosis, the list goes on. There's a whole laundry list of chronic diseases. They have all one thing in common: being in the sympathetic state far too much, far too often, far too long. Dr. Dean Ornish, he talks about how all disease is the same disease. It just has different faces. So this is the common thread. So when it comes to performance, athletic performance and physical performance, we have to understand something very important. In psychology, we refer to this as the stress curve. But it's the relationship between performance on the y-axis and stress on the x-axis. So notice the green arrow is where there is too little stress or underload. We're fairly inactive. We're chilling out on the beach. Okay, that's relaxing, that's great. But that's also a place for recovery. And we're laid back. But there's this area here, the gold area, is called optimum stress, or otherwise known as eustress. So it's just the right amount of stress. So we need to have that if we're going to stimulate muscle growth, if we're going to stimulate being able to perform in any capacity. We need to have the right amount of stress, not too much, not too little. So that's optimum stress. But once we get up to the peak of the curve, we start to experience fatigue. Fatigue is the telltale sign that we're now starting to enter into the danger zone of having too much stress and getting an overload. So we're getting too much stress. So that's this area here, kind of, I don't know what color that is. So orange, kind of orange. So too much stress, so that's overload, and we start to also experience exhaustion. So that's too much. We get so overly fatigued that we're just wiped out. That's too much. And then the red zone here, which is burnout, which is where we actually experience anxiety, panic, anger, and eventually breakdown. That's way too much. Sometimes people try to start an exercise program. How many of you have known people that try to do too much, too fast, and too soon? How many of you have known people trying to do that? Yeah, happens all the time. I, as a personal trainer, I actually taught personal trainers. And these personal trainers would get these mothers who had delivered their children and wanted to get back in shape and lose the baby fat. You ever heard of that? So they wanted to do that. So they got to the gym and they got with a trainer. And this is a macho trainer. And he has these women doing lunges with weights in their hands. And they're doing lunges all the way across the gym floor, all the way there, all the way back. And they did it so many times, they couldn't walk for another week. I told them, don't ever do that. That's too much. You can't have people do that. Lead people into fitness gradually and work at their pace. So what we want to be able to do is find this optimal area for us, because this is important for our exercise. And it's important for us to recognize that we don't want to overextend ourselves, but we want to challenge ourselves just enough. Not too little, not too much. Very important, especially after an injury. Okay, it's critically, and I got news for you. The older we get, if we get injured, the slower it's going to take, the longer it's going to take for us to recover. And you just have to be okay with that. I'm not 22 anymore, okay? I can't recover as fast as I did back then. So I have to take my time, and I have to be prudent about doing that. We want to be able to operate in the sympathetic state intentionally when we exercise. We do that. But we have to have enough time to recover in the parasympathetic state. That's in the green. So we have to have enough time for exercise to work. And this is where our body will actually recover and heal. So it's important for us to do this. And we have to measure that back and forth business when it comes to being able to engage in physical activity. Very important. Our brain also showcases this because we have all kinds of interesting brain scans showing the difference between being in the parasympathetic versus the sympathetic, or depressed versus not depressed. So it's very interesting to see. But we actually can tell that our brain is going to correspond with us in our central nervous system state. In the world of epigenetics, we also see this as well because it all plays out. Because everything that we do, this holistic environment of everything that we do in our environment, whether it's the food, our exercise, our activity, our TV, everything, the air, everything affects our expression of everything that we do, and that also can cause all kinds of problems in our metabolism. So heart disease, diabetes, cancer, metabolic syndrome, rare diseases, all are impacted. So this goes back and forth. So this is the field of epigenetics, because our genetics are turned on or off based on what we do in our lifestyle. That's what we want to get across. Now, how do we influence our central nervous system state? There are many things that we do have control over. One, we have control over the thoughts that we think. Because if we have stinking thinking, we will be in the sympathetic state. If we practice the power of positive thinking, we'll be in the parasympathetic state. Correspondingly, the words that we speak. So if we say negative words, if we're complaining, you know who you are. If we're complaining, if we're gossiping, if we're being negative, we're talking about all the nasty stuff on the news, that's going to put us in the sympathetic state. By the way, I learned a long time ago from Norman Cousins. Anybody know that name? Norman Cousins wrote The Anatomy of an Illness. Incredible story. And I got to listen to him speak at UCLA when I was doing my master's. He spoke to the medical school and the School of Public Health. And he shared how he did not watch the news. I stopped watching the news back then. In 1987, I stopped watching news. So all of that makes a difference. Third is the actions that we take. If we let ourselves off the hook by making promises to ourselves, and we say, I'm going to go to the gym every day starting on Monday at 5:30. And 5:15, the alarm goes off, and you hit the snooze button. You let yourself off the hook. You are now in the sympathetic state because you know for yourself. You made a promise to yourself, and you did not keep it. So it's real important for us to live a life of integrity. And then fourth is the company we keep. Oh, this is so powerful. If we want to be healthy and fit, it's really important for us to associate with other people who can help encourage us and support us in this journey. It's real important. Now, I learned something being a swimming coach. The best swimmers always hung out together. Isn't that interesting? Why? So they can push each other. It's called a swimming team, not swimming individuals. Everybody thinks it's an individual sport. Think again. It is very much a team sport. It very much is. So it makes a difference, the company we keep. And then the food that we eat, absolutely, we're going to talk more about that because we know that the food that we eat can either stimulate a sympathetic or a parasympathetic response. Very important to understand. All of this and more, because what we say in lifestyle medicine is that we want to look at the holistic approach of everything that affects you for your well-being. And we've known for centuries that these four energies, these fundamental energies, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual energies, are the four energies that we have as human beings that contribute to our well-being. And we want to balance all of that. So the 8 areas that I focus on to get people going and balancing their well-being are these 8 areas, all of them. And we're going to talk about some of them today. I can't cover all of it, there's no way. But I'm going to cover on the most important for athletic performance as a senior athlete. So hydration, nutrition, physical activity. I'll talk about those 4. I'm going to break up physical activity into cardio, strength, and flexibility. So I'm going to talk about those 3 areas. So let's dive in. We've got lots to talk about. The first area to talk about is, to me, is one of the most important but often overlooked areas, and that is hydration. Everybody wants to talk about the food. No problem talking about the food, but most of us do not talk about hydration often enough, and we need to. I never knew this is how giraffes drink water. Isn't that great? I love that picture. So the thing is, we need to have sufficient water. Most of us don't. And we need to have enough for our body because our body is mostly water. So we need to have a consistent supply of it, especially if we're going to be engaged in physical activity. It is so critically important. We need to be able to do that. Now, when we look at the breakdown of how water makes up different aspects of our body, what we want to be able to see is that when it comes to our body, our blood, our brain, our muscles, and our cells are vastly water. They're comprised of water. Water, 70 to 90%. So we need to be able to replenish this because we're constantly losing water. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not thirsty. I'm not losing any water, I'm fine. No, we constantly lose water. So that's urination, defecation, respiration, and perspiration. Those are the 4 ways that we lose water all the time. We generally lose anywhere from 65 to 85 ounces of water per day. Per day. Per day. I know people that don't even drink 32 ounces of water a day. So they're behind. So that means your body is deprived of water. You're in the sympathetic state. If you were out in the desert, stranded in Death Valley, and you were there all by yourself, your car broke down, what would be the first thing you would need to find is water? Absolutely right, Justin. Absolutely. Now, everybody knows that, but we don't talk about it enough. So it's critically important. When we look at the research on dehydration, it's critical to performance. We see that a dehydrated athlete with a mere 2.5% loss of body weight from dehydration. So that's a 200-pound athlete, say, loses 5 pounds of water. That's nothing. That's easy to do. That water loss, that athlete can experience up to a 45% loss in the capacity to perform high-intensity exercise. Wow. Now, let me ask you a question. Your brain is 80% water. What do most people drink first thing in the morning? Coffee. So is caffeine a hydrating agent or a dehydrating agent? It's a dehydrating agent. For every cup of coffee you drink, you're losing 2 cups of water in your body. Yeah. So what's happening to your brain when you drink the coffee? It's getting even more dehydrated. How many of you have meetings first thing in the morning? You have meetings? Anybody have meetings for early in the morning? Well, do you want people to be sharp in those meetings or brain fog? So we want to promote having water. I've had so many companies switch to having water be the beverage of choice in every boardroom. So that's what they serve is water. Makes a difference. So we want to be able to do that. Early signs of dehydration. If you have increased thirst, it's actually kind of late. If you have dry mouth and sticky saliva, that means you're pretty well dehydrated, and reduced urine output with dark yellow urine, that definitely means you're dehydrated. So you want to check the color of your urine. It should be pale yellow to clear, always. Now, moderate dehydration is even worse. You have extreme thirst, but you're still thirsty. You notice it. Parched, really parched. Dry appearance inside your mouth, and the eyes don't tear. Decreased urination, or half the number of urinations in 24 hours. Usually 3 or fewer times going to the bathroom in 24 hours. Urine is dark, amber, or brown. Not good. Lightheadedness that is relieved by lying down. So that's moderate dehydration. Moderate to me, that's kind of extreme. But extreme, severe dehydration is actually life-threatening. It is. It's serious. Symptoms that require emergency care. Altered behavior, severe anxiety, confusion, not being able to stay awake, faintness, lightheadedness, weak rapid pulse, cold clammy skin or hot dry skin, little or no urination, loss of consciousness. I've dealt with this. I've had athletes actually get into this state. It's not a pretty sight. It has to be addressed very quickly. It is an urgent situation. What's that? Well, getting water right away and calling 911. Yeah, lots of water, because in this situation, somebody's got to actually be hooked up to an IV. Mm-hmm.
A lot of elderly end up in the ER.
Yes, they do. They do, and this is something that happens. It happens a lot with elderly, because especially when it's hot, and in some cities here in the United States, they don't have a whole lot of air conditioning, so when they get the heat waves, it can be catastrophic. So it's real important to understand. Now, here's what we can do about it. Here's number one. It's habits. It's all about habits. We show in the research this. This is just for heart disease and strokes, but the Adventist Health Study showed that just 5 8-ounce glasses of water per day, 40 ounces, reduced the risk of heart disease and stroke by 50%. 50%. That's the number one killer in the United States. We could do this. This should be on CNN every single night, and Fox News, and NBC News, and on all the news networks. This should be on the news every single night, as far as I'm concerned. But see, we don't value health in this country. We value illness and money, okay? Now, when it comes to weight loss, we also have clinical trials showing that a mere 2 cups of water before each meal actually led to a 44% greater rate of weight loss. That would put Nutrisystem out of business, okay? Completely. Now, here are the parameters for drinking water to consider, especially in the summer. It's timely that we're having this today. So water is essential. Minimum of 1 ounce per pound of body weight if you weigh less than 96 pounds. Okay, if you weigh less than 96 pounds, up to minimum 96 ounces. Up to a gallon of water per person per day. That's 128 ounces, a gallon. Now, don't do it all at once, please. Okay, don't do it. Sip on it and work your way up to it. You may need to increase sodium if it's a dramatic increase for you, and you may need to decrease it if you have kidney or heart disease right now. See your physician. I'm working with somebody who's got diabetes and kidney disease, is on dialysis, so we're having to be very careful about how much water he drinks. But he's getting better, and he's able to drink more water, which is nice. Now, here's a tip. Here's a plan. Very simple. And that is, drink 2 full 8-ounce glasses first thing in the morning. Absolutely. One of the most important times to drink water is first thing in the morning. Start at least with 16 ounces. I drink 32 ounces every single morning, first thing. So I do a major amount of water first thing in the morning. So I do that. It really helps a lot. I don't drink coffee. I used to be addicted to caffeine. I don't need it anymore. It's so wonderful. And then that's hydrating your brain. Drink a glass of water before, during, or after each meal. So if you have 3 meals, that's another 16, sorry. Okay, so that's 16, 48 ounces. Okay, so then drink 2 glasses before a workout. It's another 16 ounces. Drink 2 glasses after a workout. That'll get you to 96 ounces. It's a great plan. You can do more if you want, but that's to get you to 96 ounces. Very important. Now, always, here's what I tell people. It's not just what you put in, it's also what comes out. So make sure you're going to the bathroom about every hour to 2 hours. That's a good frequency. If you're going every 30 minutes, you can back off. But it should be every hour to 2 hours. That's a good frequency. And the urine should be pale yellow to clear. So you should check your pee. So it's very important to do that. And don't worry if you're going to the bathroom frequently during the day. That's okay. It really is. And it actually could be socially helpful for you. Because when you're drinking a gallon of water, you have an excuse to tell them, I have to go. So it's a wonderful tool. Now, that's hydration. Let's talk about nutrition. Now, not only the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, but many other scientific organizations all agree that we need to eat more plant foods. A predominantly plant-based diet has been shown in the research and actually validated by many scientific organizations as optimum, absolutely optimum. So we advocate for a whole foods as opposed to processed foods, and a plant foods as opposed to animal foods. Processed foods are foods that have something added or something taken away. For instance, olive oil is a processed food. It takes approximately 28 to 36 olives to make 1 teaspoon of olive oil. So it's all the fiber is stripped. A lot of the different components of the olives are stripped away to make that olive oil. So we recommend not processed foods, but whole foods. You're better off eating the olives, and they taste better anyway. Now, the benefits of this approach are many. We have lots of research on this. I'm not going to go through all of this because I got more to cover, but it absolutely has so many benefits. In fact, there's so many benefits that I had to put together another slide with even more benefits. So there's a huge number of benefits and even more than this. So it's extraordinary. But if we look from the standpoint of athletic performance, especially as we get older, there's an interesting question. Why is it that more professional and high caliber athletes are choosing a whole food plant-based diet? Here are just a few of them. Just some examples of top-level, high-performing athletes who have chosen a whole food, plant-based diet. And in fact, Chris Paul, he talks about how a whole food, plant-based diet has been his secret weapon. In fact, he was reluctant to tell anybody that he was actually on a whole food, plant-based diet. So it really quite extraordinary, quite extraordinary. Now, I'm going to share with you 3 major reasons, something a little different today, so something that you have not heard me talk about. 3 major reasons why top-level athletes, whether they're collegiate athletes, professional athletes, whatever the case may be, even Olympic athletes. So there's 3 major reasons why they're choosing a whole food plant-based diet when it comes to performance. Number 1 is increased energy. And we have lots of research around this. Second, decreased inflammation. This is real important because when we exercise, we are actually inducing inflammation into our body. We're inducing it intentionally. And it's actually, we induce this, it's intentional, but we have to also be able to recover. And that's the third part. When we're on a plant-based diet, we actually experience improved recovery. I'm going to show you some research on all 3 of these. So let's talk about this. So number 1, I learned this a long time ago. So when I was studying exercise physiology, the father of exercise physiology was an MD by the name of Dr. Astrand. Now, he conducted this experiment. Per Olaf Astrand. So he got some athletes together, And what he did is he wanted to test the effectiveness on diet on stamina. How does diet affect stamina in high-level athletes? So for a whole week, he had this group of athletes. He'd already calibrated them, so they're all in a very similar level of capacity. And he put them on a high-fat and protein diet. Back then, it was called the zone diet. How many of you remember that? Okay, so the zone diet. So it was zone diet. There's then the Atkins diet. Then there's been the paleo diet. And then there's been the ketogenic diet. They're all high-fat and high-protein diets. So he put them on that diet for an entire week. And then he put them on an exercise bike to test their stamina. And they all tapped out at an average of 60 minutes on the exercise bike. That was it. They couldn't go anymore. 60 minutes. So then for the next week, he put all these athletes on a mixed diet. The muscle fuel went up, so it was mixed, so some animal foods and more plant foods. So it was mixed. Carbohydrate increases muscle fuel and exercise endurance. And after a week, he put them on the exercise bike, and their endurance doubled to 120 minutes. Wow, double. How many of you would like to have twice the stamina? So just by adding more plants and less meat. Then he put them on the full extreme a whole week on just a high carbohydrate diet. That's it. That's all they did. No animal flesh whatsoever for a whole week. And then he put them on the exercise bike, and they tripled their stamina. Tripled. How many of you like to triple your stamina? So they were able to do this because that's what fuels muscle. How many of you have ever heard the term carbohydrate loading? How many of you heard that term? That's where this came from. That term came from these experiments. That's where it came from. So we've learned to be able to do this for athletes, and it makes a huge difference. When we look at the cellular level, if muscle cells function like a car, what we see is that the engine is composed of mitochondria, the pistons. The infrastructure of the body, the infrastructure of the cell is muscle protein. That's the infrastructure. It's not energy, it's not fuel, it's infrastructure. And then the fuel tank number 1 is glycogen, and fuel tank number 2 is triglycerides. So we need those to be the fuels. Those are the proper fuels for optimum performance. If you're burning protein as a fuel, you're actually in an emergency state. Not good. Not good, because you're cannibalizing yourself. Not good. So when we look at the energy production inside a cell, in the parasympathetic state, what's optimal is that we get, let's see, I wonder if I have a pointer. I do. Okay, so in order to do that, this molecule right here, adenosine triphosphate, that is the energy molecule for the human body that we need to produce. Optimal production of ATP occurs through the mitochondria. Now, to do that, we need this substrate, pyruvate, and we need some free fatty acids. We need both of those to come in, but this is the major substrate, is pyruvate. Now, we can produce a little bit of ATP through a process called glycolysis, but it's not nearly as much. And now, in order to produce this pyruvate, we have to go through glycolysis to clip off a sugar molecule from the glycogen molecule, and we clip off a glucose and then split it in half, and that becomes pyruvate. When we do that, each glucose molecule gets converted to 36 ATP. Wonderful, wonderful. Now, to be able to produce this glycogen and store it inside the cell, we need 2 specific carbohydrates. Not all carbs are the same. A lot of people say carbs are bad, carbs are bad. Carb turns to sugar. There's a lot of myths. And there's a lot of truths in certain things, but they don't have it all fully explained. There's a difference between refined carbohydrates and unrefined carbohydrates. Everybody with me on that? Okay, so unrefined carbohydrates that come from these 2 specific carbohydrates, amylose and amylopectin. I bet you've never seen that on a food label, have you? I've never seen it. And yet, those are the two specific carbohydrates that human beings need to have in order to produce optimum energy. That's what we need, those two. So if we look at the molecular structure diagrams, here is amylose, which is a spiral. And then we have amylopectin, which is kind of a tree. Those two are broken down by a particular enzyme called amylase. How many of you have ever heard of amylase? Amylase is in your mouth and in your entire gut. All right, so amylase is an enzyme that breaks down amylose and amylopectin. And as soon as you start to salivate, you're producing amylase. Isn't that amazing? So the next time you see a potato and your mouth waters, you know what you're putting in, what is getting produced in your mouth, amylase. It's wonderful. Now, amylose and amylopectin, otherwise known as starch. Starch, isn't that amazing? Starch. Starch. Amylose and amylopectin together make up what we call starch. What it looks like for you and me is this: legumes, beans, peas, lentils. And there's a lot of varieties to choose from. I didn't know there were 22,000 plus. I had no idea. And then whole grains. There are 21 major varieties of whole grains. I didn't know. Incredible. And then starchy vegetables. How many of you love potatoes and sweet potatoes? All right, love them, love them. Over 4,000 different types of edible potatoes and 100 known varieties of squash. Amazing, amazing. And then all plant food has starch, including vegetables. Vegetables. Wow, there's over 1,097 unique cultivated species worldwide. Amazing. And then guess what? What's healthy for you as well is fruit. Fruit is outstanding. It's one of the most important foods for longevity is fruit. There's over 2,000 different types of fruit. Incredible. Now, for healthy fats, all plant food has some fat. It all does. But if you need a little bit higher amount of fat, then you could use nuts, seeds, and avocados. They are higher levels of fat. Everybody has a different level of fat metabolism. Your body, based on the number of mitochondria and based on how fit you are, you can actually handle a certain amount of fat. Everybody's different. I'll give you an example. One of my good friends, an Olympic marathoner, 1992 Olympics, Barcelona Olympics. They sent him to the training center in Colorado Springs. They measured his fat, carbohydrate, and protein metabolism, how much of each he needed in his diet. His fat metabolism measured out at 125 grams of fat per day. Now that's a lot. That's over 3 avocados. Okay? But that's a distance, that's a world-class distance runner. Okay? He needs to have that. Absolutely necessary. The average American consumes 161 grams of fat per person per day. More than an Olympic marathoner. That's a problem. So we need to have the right amount for us. Everyone is different. In Canada, our neighbors to the north, they actually used this research to create their food guide for 2019, and it's 88% minimum of plants. Now, a lot of people say, well, how am I going to get enough protein? Right? How many of you are thinking that question right now? How am I going to get enough protein? So here's the deal. The research has been clearly done. Dr. Christopher Gardner at Stanford University, nutritional biochemist. And he shows, I'm going to show you his graph. All plant foods have all 20 amino acids that the human body needs. Here's the evidence right here. Yes, you can get all the 20 amino acids from animal foods. Yes, it's true. But legumes, beans, lentils, peas, grains, pasta, nuts, vegetables, fruits, and mushrooms all have all of the essential and non-essential amino acids you need. You will never become protein deficient by eating plants. 30 years. Only plants. Okay, you'll never become protein deficient. Now, the next area, the next reason why top-level athletes are choosing a plant-based diet is because of inflammation. Many things cause inflammation, all these things: stress, dehydration, being sedentary, lack of sleep, meat, dairy, and eggs, processed meats, fried foods, oils, sodas, alcohol, tobacco, caffeine, fast foods, and refined sugars. That's just the partial list, but it's most of it. These things cause and trigger inflammation in the body, being in the sympathetic state. Now, yes, you can get protein from eating meat, but there's a trade-off. Dr. Michael Clapper, who has been touring the country and sharing information about what he should have learned about nutrition when he was in medical school, he shared this slide. And I love this slide, that when you have meat, you also have a trade-off of meat-specific toxins. So you get oxidized cholesterol, you get reactive aldehydes, which are mutagenic, you get new 5-GC, which is pro-inflammatory, endotoxins, which are heat stable and that stay in your body, trimethylamine oxide from carnitine metabolism, carcinogenic heterocyclic amines, heme iron, and bioconcentrated pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, hormones, and antibiotics. None of this is good. None of it. So that's the trade-off when you eat, whether it's fish, whether it's beef, pork, poultry, any animal flesh whatsoever. It doesn't matter. You're going to get all of this. When it comes to trimethylamine oxide, we have seen in the research that there are these foreign amino acids that come with red meat, poultry, liver, fish, milk, cheese, and eggs. Carnitine, phenylcarnitine, choline, and betaine. And what has to happen, because our body can't use them, we can't process them and use them effectively. So we have to have an entire species of bacteria in our gut that has to mediate the breakdown of these compounds. So we have Bacteroides and other species of bacteria in the gut, and they convert those molecules into something called trimethylamine, which happens to be pretty darn toxic. And that shuttles over to the liver. And so the liver, one of the functions of the liver is to denature toxic compounds. So it's going to take that trimethylamine and convert it with oxidation to trimethylamine oxide. But that gets into the arteries, and that leads to heart attack, stroke, death, or revascularization and surgery. So that's what we see. Because of this research, we actually put it to the test with the American Heart Association. And what we said, okay, let's get a group of randomized post-angiography patients with diagnosed coronary artery disease. These people have diagnosed legitimate heart disease. So we're going to take them, and we're going to take about 100 of them and split them up into two groups. And then we're going to put one on a completely plant-based diet. We'll do that. And the other group, we're going to put them on the American Heart Association recommended diet, which is a bit more fat and protein. So we did that for 8 weeks. Now, this solid line here is the baseline, where they started. And this is the difference. So the American Heart Association diet, they actually had, most of the people actually have more inflammation, measuring it with high sensitivity C-reactive protein. But all the people on the plant-based diet had less inflammation. They had less high sensitivity C-reactive protein. As a result of this research, the American Heart Association now advocates a plant-based diet as optimal. Isn't that interesting? So they've changed their tune. Now, when we see the research on athletic performance, I'm going to send you this information as well. The more phytonutrients you consume as an athlete, the faster your body can recover from exercise-induced inflammation and oxidative stress. So absolutely, we have lots of research on that. The third reason why more top-level athletes are choosing a plant-based diet is because better recovery. Better recovery. So what we show is that when we exercise, and we exercise really hard, our muscles break down the pyruvate and produce something called lactic acid or lactate. How many of you have ever been sore after overdoing it? And then you were sore for a couple of days after. How many of you know what that feels like? That's called delayed onset muscle soreness. DOMS. Okay, that's the term for that. delayed onset muscle soreness. Now, the reason why we experience that, because all this lactic acid floods into the bloodstream, and now we also have a marker for this, because when the muscle breaks down like that, we produce something called creatine kinase. Creatine kinase. Now, what happens is that creatine kinase stays in the bloodstream, and we start feeling that muscle soreness, and it usually lasts for a couple of days. How many of you have felt that? Okay, very good. So most of you know what that feels like. Now, we did a test. We put it to the test. What happens when we introduce a few more plants into the diet with athletes? So we took some collegiate athletes, and we were training them, and we split them up into 2 groups, randomly assigned them to 2 different groups. Now, this is published in the Journal of Sports Medicine and Physical Fitness. And we took this group, and what happens, we train them like normal for a whole week, usual training, and then we said at the end of the week, we're going to put them to a bigger test, a bigger challenge. They all were going to need to run a half marathon. Okay, 13.1 miles. All right, that's a bit of a strain. So they all had to be pushed to be able to do a half marathon. They didn't prepare for it, they just had to do it. Now, what happened is that we measured the creatine kinase. Now, normal blood level of creatine kinase, which is a marker of the muscle breakdown, it was 100, but after the run, it doubled to 200. Now, the delayed onset muscle soreness was experienced for the next 2 days. In the control group, the levels increased of creatine kinase all the way up to 600 before gradually decreasing. So that told us how much delayed onset muscle soreness was there, because it built up for a while before starting to come down. But in the test group, and all they did is they consumed a spinach salad a day. That's it. We added that to their diet. We added a spinach salad a day, just one spinach salad a day. One spinach salad. And then what happened? They ran the half marathon. The levels rose to 200 after the run, just like the control group did. But then afterwards, it decreased. It decreased to almost no delayed onset muscle soreness. This has been replicated many times. It's exciting. Exciting. So better recovery. So the food that you eat can either be the safest and most powerful form of medicine or the slowest form of poison. And it makes a difference in performance. So try to have your refrigerator look like this, a garden teeming with life rather than a morgue rotting of death. Okay? So have it do this. Now, here's some more hacks. I'm going to give you some more hacks. Now, pre-workout. What's recommended is that you need to have enough fuel in your system so that you can actually make it through the workout. Depends on when you do your workout. So if you work out first thing in the morning, it may be hard to eat and digest. So you need to make sure that you have had enough fuel in the evening and you didn't go to bed hungry, so you have enough fuel to make it through the workout first thing in the morning. Depends when you do it. Ideally, if you're going to be in competition or if you're working out in the afternoon, you want to have some digestible fuel about 45 to 90 minutes before you work out. That's the time frame. That gives your body enough time to assimilate the food. It takes about 20 minutes in the stomach, and then it moves into the small intestine and gets absorbed. So we want to give it a little bit of time. Now, you want to make sure that you're getting enough water always, and consume enough water during your workouts as well. So keep that in mind. So you may need to have enough fuel. Sometimes, I noticed this for me. I'll just give you an example. When I was in high school, I would get out of classes in the early afternoon, and I would go and get my orange smoothie. It was an orange smoothie and a banana. And that was perfect for me to go through a 2-hour swimming workout. That was just enough fuel. I just needed a little bit more. So figure out what it is. In fact, we've shown in the research that bananas happen to be one of the best foods for workouts. Isn't that great? One of the best things. So they're great. Now, post-workout, after your workout, you want to rehydrate, number one. That's the first thing. Immediately rehydrate. You do not need the protein shake. okay? That's completely a sales pitch. So get your water. Continue to drink water every 15 minutes. Your body absorbs about 1 cup of water every 15 minutes. So drink plenty of water and be able to do that. Now, the most important window to refuel is about 30 minutes after your workout. And you want a little something. It doesn't have to be a whole lot, but it's a little something. Sometimes it's a few slices of sweet potato. And that's wonderful, by the way. And I put my son on that as well. It worked really great. So that's your primary fuel source is going to be starch. Starch within about 30 minutes after a workout. That's going to be what you need to replenish the most. That increases your glycogen replenishment. Now, all right, that's nutrition. Now let's talk about cardiovascular exercise. So I don't have time to go into full depth. I can probably talk about this for about 3 hours. I'm not going to do that. Now, how cardiovascular exercise truly works. It's not about burning calories. Get rid of that. A lot of people say, oh, I was on the treadmill today and I burned 375 calories. Now I can have a cheeseburger. No. No, you cannot out-exercise a bad diet, all right? So forget that idea. The true purpose of cardiovascular exercise is to change your cellular physiology and stimulate what we call mitochondrial proliferation. That means you build the number and size of mitochondria inside your cells. The number of cells in your body stays about the same your entire adult life. We replace cells from time to time. Okay, we do that. But the nature of your cells can totally change. This is exciting. You should be getting a big smile on your face right now because you can actually increase your capacity to produce energy and vitality because you can actually increase the number of mitochondria inside your cell, which is basically the same as going from a 4-cylinder Honda to a 12-cylinder Lamborghini. Yeah, Justin's excited. Yes, he is. So this is what we know. We can actually take these mitochondria inside the cells and we can stimulate mitochondrial proliferation with primarily cardiovascular exercise. So we do that and various different forms. So the true power in our lives, what gives people power is not money. It's not status. What gives you power is mitochondria. Yes, that's the new currency. It's energy. Now, what we want to be able to do is master aerobic exercise. There's 3 major types of exercise for adults. For athletes, there's even more. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm also certified nationally as American Swimming Coaches Association as well. I'm a level 3 coach, all right? So I've actually been certified as that as well. So I had to do a lot of testing in physiology and exercise physiology for swimmers. Amazing. So there's aerobic exercise, anaerobic threshold, and anaerobic exercise levels. I'm only going to talk about aerobic today. That's it. Now, here's what we show from lifestyle medicine. The sweet spot for all of us is between 150 to 300 minutes of aerobic exercise per week. Per week. Don't do it all at once, okay? Spread it out. So if you do the math, that's about 5 30-minute sessions per week minimum. You can do more, all right? You can do more, but you want to break it up for the course of the week. So 5 exercise sessions of 30 minutes will help you tremendously. And it will actually reverse your risk of dementia as well. Many things. Your goal, I always tell people, your goal is about 6 days a week. 6 days a week, 30 minutes a day. That's a great goal to have. You want to be consistent. It works really well. And 5 to 6 days a week will actually help you to change your physiology. That's your goal, is to change your physiology. It's not about burning calories. No, it's about changing your physiology. 3 to 4 times a week will help you to just maintain. So you need to get to 5 to 6 days a week to change. Now, the intensity should be vigorous, should be. You want to work your way up to it if you have not been exercising. You should be able to barely breathe comfortably, barely, barely. And talking begins to get choppy and you don't really want to talk. That's a good sign. So you're at that level. Pay attention to your breathing. The American College of Sports Medicine talks about the perceived level of exertion. So pay attention to your breathing. Very important measure. So do that. Now, the intensity, again, American College of Sports Medicine, the perceived level of exertion. You can also measure your heart rate, but that's a secondary measure. Everybody's heart rate will be different. If you're out of shape, it'll be easy for your heart rate to climb up very quickly. If you're in shape, you might need to push a little harder before your heart rate gets up to the right level for you. Everybody's different. So pay attention to your breathing. That's the most important tool. So do that. The heart rate numbers on the graphs that you see when you go to the gym, it's based on a bell-shaped curve distribution. Not everybody is going to be in that curve. Most people are just in the middle. But some people are very low or some people are very high. One of my top-level athletes, a swimmer, she had a full-ride scholarship to Catholic University in swimming, became an NCAA academic All-American. All 4 years, conference record holder in the 100 and 200 backstroke. When I tested her level of exertion, she was off the charts. I thought I was killing her. No, that was just her level, and it's genetic, and there's a lot of different factors involved. So everybody's different. Now, the duration that you need to stimulate mitochondrial proliferation is a mere 20 minutes a day. Isn't that exciting? 20 minutes a day. The key is consistency. The key is consistency. No kidding. Now, it doesn't include your warm-up and cool-down, but 20 minutes. You can do a variety of different exercises, a variety. The more muscles you engage, the better. It works really well. And a lot of times I remember Covert Bailey. How many of you remember Covert? Okay, he used to say, swimming does not do enough for you. I disagree. The leanest athletes in the Olympics, number 1 are the distance runner, number 2 are the swimmers. But there's a caveat. You have to know how to swim. Covert doesn't know how to swim, okay? So you can do a lot of different things. All of them are helpful. Walking, for most of us, is the most fundamental exercise that you can engage in. Get started. If you can walk, you can do this. You can get started. It's great. All right, so we want to do that. Now, to measure your fitness, I'm going to give you one tool. It's called the cardiac recovery rate. It's a very specific tool to help you measure your cardiovascular fitness. So you do a warm-up, and you do 20 minutes of aerobic exercise. Now, normally, you would warm down, but in this situation, what you'll do is check your heart rate while you're actually engaged in aerobic exercise. At the end of 20 minutes of exercise, you're going to stop. You just stop, and you check your heart rate. Okay, you check your heart rate, and you're going to measure your drop in heart rate once a minute for 5 minutes. So you do that. Then after 5 minutes, you complete your cool down. How fast your heart rate drops down is an indication of how fit you are at the cardiovascular level. One of my students years ago, an executive in his mid-40s, I tested him. And the first time he did this, his heart rate in January 2005, he was at optimal level for him at 107 beats per minute. Not very good. Okay, he didn't have to do very much, but he was already breathing and he was taxed out. And he was at 107 beats per minute. And then his cardiac recovery rate, you can see the slope here is very flat. And it only dropped down to 86 beats after 5 minutes. Not too good. So his cardiac recovery rate is very poor in this situation. Now, it was a year and a quarter later, and we did it again. Now, he had been telling me that he was really consistent with his exercise, and I said, okay, let's put it to the test. Because this test doesn't lie. So we did that, And he was able to get his heart rate up to 145 minutes, 45 beats per minute for 20 minutes. Much better. Good. Really good. But the cardiac recovery rate was not so great. So this told me a story. I said, okay, you've been doing your cardiovascular exercise enough to improve your fitness level and what your heart can actually do and what your blood vessels will allow you to do, but you haven't been consistent. And he goes, oh. Because he knew I had him, because I could tell. You have not been consistent. Because if you'd been really consistent, that would have gone from 145 down to about 75 in 5 minutes. Big difference. Big, big difference. I can tell. I've worked with so many athletes. So this is an example of a workout that I did years ago. And, just being able to get the heart rate up into the aerobic level, did a little bit more intensity there. But notice how fast the heart rate drops down. That's what we should see as a healthy, very fit cardiac recovery rate. So that's another tool. In addition, we've got research showing something very exciting about exercise. One of the benefits of exercise, this was an international study between Yale and Oxford, and showing that exercise makes you happier than having $25,000 extra per year. Yes. So when in doubt, just take a walk, all right? So that's what you want to do. And one of the best exercises that we can do as we get older, it's really interesting, it's actually dancing. Partner dancing is one of the best exercises. As we age, it's fantastic. Research actually showed out of Albert Einstein, in terms of reducing the risk of dementia, dancing scored best, a 76% reduction in the risk of dementia. Yes, salsa, anyone? All right, so that's what we want to do. Okay, next aspect we want to talk about is strength. Very important. Strength, strength, strength. We must work our muscles. I forgot to bring my stretch bands today, but here's the deal. This is all of the biology of muscle. This is a large muscle. There are fibers, many fibers included inside that muscle, broken down to fibrils, and that breaks down to the muscle cells. And this is the cell walls there. And we have these proteins, myosin, which are the thick filaments, and actin, which are the thin filaments. And that's a cross-section of a muscle fiber. So that's what we want to be able to build. Now, you do not build muscle by eating protein. Get that one out of your head. That's marketing. All right? You do not build muscle by eating protein. I need to eat more protein so I can build muscle. No. Doesn't happen. It will never happen. Okay? It's like building a driveway with just, I'm going to build a driveway and you get sand and rock and you get cement just dropped on your driveway, and you think you're going to be able to build a driveway, but you got no cement mixer. You're not going to be able to build anything. So you need the process of being able to produce that muscle, and that's called protein synthesis. It's a cellular level function. And we actually have to manufacture the muscle proteins, myosin, and actin in the parasympathetic state during recovery. That's when we manufacture muscle. Yes, question, Bill. What's that? We can build more muscle fibers. Okay, so we can build that, but we can only build that in the parasympathetic state, and this is the process of protein synthesis. That's how we do it. It's a nuclear function in the cell. It actually generates in the cell. Our brain has to send a signal to the cell. It says, oh, you've been working really consistently. I'm going to reward you. I'm going to now start manufacturing more myosin and actin so you can build that into your muscle fibers. So we have to have the brain involved. So it works that way. And we have to stimulate it consistently. Now, just so you know, all of these athletes built their bodies on just plants. Okay, just so you can see the evidence. All are vegan and half have never eaten meat. I know Nimai has never eaten a speck of meat in his life. Okay, so clear examples of protein deficiency. I thought you should see it. Okay, question. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's pretty commonly around
Yeah,
So I think that feeds into this idea, oh, that means we need to eat more protein, whether it's
right,
meat-based or plant.
right. That's the myth, that we need to eat more protein. No, you need to train more. We need to train more. We need to train our bodies more. That's what we need to be able to do. Like that nun who deadlifted 160 pounds. All right, you got to train. You have to build your body up. It's important for us to do that. So how strength works, muscle protein only builds when the body is challenged consistently and then rested. We have to go in that cycle. If you don't use it, you lose it. Strength training builds bigger pistons, stronger body, healthier body, and it burns fat more effectively. So we need to be able to do this. Most people that I have come across and trained, when I was training people as a trainer, most people did not do enough strength work. That was a deficiency. They did cardio, but they didn't do enough strength work. I've seen a lot of people do that. One of my best recommendations, I forgot to bring them, is the stretch bands. I recommend the stretch bands with handles that are also covered with cloth that stretches with the stretch band. Those are the safest stretch bands. In the follow-up email that I'm going to send to all of you, I will send you the link so that you can purchase a set for yourself. And you have different levels of resistance. So 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds. So you can work at your level. And they're great. I'm going to send you videos with more exercises. I got all kinds of resources for you. Anybody can do this. And it's one of the best ways to build muscle strength because it's progressive resistance. It's the fastest way to stimulate muscle growth. Last thing we're going to talk about is flexibility. So one of the things that we see in athletic teams is that more and more professional athletes are actually hiring yoga instructors. Yes, like Kelly and me. Okay, so it's wonderful. We're seeing this in high schools. We're seeing this in professional teams. They're doing this all the time because we know it makes a difference in performance. It makes a difference in preventing injuries. It makes a difference in mindset as well. So there's so many benefits to doing yoga, improving your flexibility. So I recommend yoga as a wonderful modality to help improve your balance, your posture, your strength, your mindset, peace of mind, and so many other benefits. Wouldn't you agree, Kelly? 1,000%. Great, thank you. All right, so now an example. I just want to share with you one of my favorite examples with all of you. Now, my son, my youngest son, Joseph, some of you met him at the Sunday night dinner. Elaine, you got to meet him. Okay, so this is my son when he was at UC Santa Cruz 2 years ago. 3 years ago now, at the age of 21. 6'4", 185 pounds, 9.7% body fat, 45% muscle, visceral fat only 2, body age 28, that's a mature athlete, and he was plant-powered at that point for 9 years. It's now been 12 years for him. It's been extraordinary. The #1 breaststroker for UC Santa Cruz, and led his team to extraordinary success. Now, all plants. In 2020, Pacific Collegiate Conference finalist in all 5 events. Most improved swimmer and first conference championship in school history. They didn't swim the year for COVID, so in 2022, he was a finalist in all 5 events. Most improved swimmer, second place conference championship for UC Santa Cruz, best in school history those 2 years. And then in 2023, conference finalist in all 5 events. Most inspirational and second place conference championship for UC Santa Cruz. UC Santa Cruz is a Division III school with no scholarships. In order to win the conference championship, they had to beat a dozen Division II schools with scholarships. And my son beat a whole bunch of them. So he did really well. So this is one of my favorite pictures. I took this one, 100-yard breaststroke in 56.92. If you know your swimming, you know that's fast. Okay, and a 200-yard breaststroke in 208.4. So very quick, very strong swimmer. And this is Nimai Delgado. I've never eaten meat in my life, so I'm proof that you can build muscle with just plants. Yes. And ladies too, so Samantha Shorkey, a plant-built vegan. Yes, absolutely. And you don't have to take a life to build muscle. You can be compassionate and still be a badass, David Carter. I love this one. This is Torrey Washington, and that's what he eats, plants. He's an incredible athlete. Alex Morgan, the captain of the United States women's national team, absolutely vegan as well. Now, this one, a really remarkable man, Jim Morris, who chose to be vegan later on in his life, but he was a professional bodybuilder. But this is him at the age of 70. 70. Extraordinary. Only plants. And I love what Frank Medrano, my friend down in Los Angeles, he says, do not change yourself for the approval of others. Change others by improving yourself. I thought I was healthy and strong before, but after adopting a plant-based diet, I started to feel energetic. And I was having quicker recovery after training. He's extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. I'm going to send you links from him. And then Patrick Baboumian, considered one of the strongest men in the world. Someone asked me, he said, how could you get as strong as an ox without eating any meat? And my answer was, have you ever seen an ox eating meat? I love that. A few books to help you. One is from Robert Cheek, Shred It. Excellent, excellent book. And then also my good friend, Dr. Garth Davis, who presented his lecture at the American College of Lifestyle Medicine Conference, Protein-aholic. Absolutely phenomenal information. Really great stuff. And then the more recent book by Robert Cheek, and he partnered with Matt Frazier, and they wrote this book, The Plant-Based Athlete. Fantastic, fantastic book. Anybody who is engaging in any sports or athletics, I have them read this book. It's fantastic, it gives lots of information, very, very good. An excellent documentary to watch is called The Game Changers. It's fantastic, well done, and all the research is documented there as well. Excellent. And then more recently was the documentary That You Are What You Eat, a twin experiment conducted by Dr. Christopher Gardner at Stanford University. Absolutely phenomenal. So what we showed, the significant clinical findings by being on a plant-based diet, lower LDL cholesterol, that's the number one risk factor for heart disease that we measure. Another is trimethylamine oxide, which is an inflammatory marker, so we see a decrease in that as well. We also see an increase in telomere length. That is the caps of your chromosomes. The longer your telomeres, the longer you live. And then improved microbiome. This is important for so many reasons because there's so much that happens in our gut. So we need to have a healthier microbiome. So your practices, your mission, should you choose to accept it. Here's Frank Medrano and his girlfriend. All right, drink plenty of water. Whole food, plant-based, build mitochondria, build muscle, practice yoga, train hard, then rest. That's your formula. Now remember, this is all about progress. It's not about perfection. So just do the best that you can. Do it all the time, as often as you can. Try to strive for consistency. That's the key. Strive for consistency. Now, how many of you would like to make the rest of your life the best of your life? How many? How many? All right, very, very good. So now the question is, imagine, what would that look like for you? Would you be a senior athlete, perhaps, doing all kinds of amazing things, swimming, running track, playing tennis, whatever the case may be, having lots of fun? All right, would you end up dancing with your loved one on the beaches of the world, having so much fun and vitality and energy? Wouldn't that be great? So now the question is this: where are you now? Are you there yet? Chances are you're not. So if you're going to get there from where you are now, what do you need? A plan, absolutely correct. You need a plan. But do you have a plan that's actually proven to work? Most people do not, but I do. And it's a 4-point plan. So this is basically what my book covers. It's a 4-point plan. Number one, we must begin from within. The game always starts here. Whether you're an athlete, whether you're in business, whether you're in pursuing better health, it doesn't matter. Everything that you want to improve and change in your life starts with your mindset, your thinking, your attitude, your consciousness and awareness. It starts here. Number 2, we need a proven strategy. We can't wing it. We need a proven strategy, something that's evidence-based perhaps. That would be best. Third, we need to develop the consistency so that we develop the habits that produce the results that we want. Habits produce results. Consistency develops those habits. So we need there's a science to being able to do that. I teach that. And then fourth, we need a structure, a new structure, an environment of support and accountability, because we are not doing well if we're isolated and doing it all by ourselves. We know from the research, isolation is deadly. So we need support and accountability. So that's the 4-point plan. It works. I'm going to be sharing in the newsletter soon. In the follow-up email, I'll have everybody's email, but I'll be sending out an email for everybody about my upcoming 12-week lifestyle medicine immersion program. I'm so excited. So I'm going to send you information. Be sure to check it out. I'll have a video with it. Check it all out. Other services that I offer, I also do consultations for people. I get people set up on a plan to get them started and have a plan of what are the most important actions they need to take right now. I also do one-on-one coaching. I work with people. I specialize working with people who have serious conditions. So I just started with a client right now. She's got stage 4 colon cancer. Okay? And she is extraordinary, and she has the right mindset, and she's taking it on, and we're going to go after it, and it's just going to be awesome. It really is, and she's doing everything right, but we got to change the entire lifestyle. But that's what I specialize in. I've worked with people with pancreatic cancer and diabetes and heart disease and Alzheimer's and all kinds of things. So that's what I specialize in, and it's really wonderful to be able to do that. And then I also work in the workplaces. So I love being able to transform entire organizations, and I work with their leadership, and I work with their health. It's extraordinary to have a thriving, healthy organization. It's amazing. Here's my contact information, but I want to share with you this final quote with a picture of my son, Gabriel, surfing 2 Junes ago, on Father's Day 2 years ago. So life is not a journey to the grave to arrive in a pretty and well-preserved body. No, it's not. Rather, to skid in broadside, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, wow, what a ride. All right, so that's my wish for all of you. All right, so remember, your mission, should you choose to